Hey, this is Andrew Brown from Exam Pro, and we are talking about service meshes. So a service mesh manages service-to-service communication for microservice architectures, a service meaning an application, not a Kubernetes service component. So this is where, I said how service is a confusing name. This is where we get that confusion. So a service mesh is an infrastructure layer that can provide the following: reliability, traffic management, retries, load balancing, observability, so metrics and traces, security, so TLS certifications and identity. And so the idea is that you'd have a service mesh control plane. So the installation of the proxies into pods as well as the proxies capabilities is managed by the service mesh control plane. And a service mesh uses a sidecar pattern. Carefully listen to this because this is super important and will probably show up in the exam. But a sidecar pattern basically is a proxy container that is installed on each pod, and the apps container must pass the proxy before leaving the egressing pod. So the idea is that when you install a service mesh, this proxy or sidecar, as it will say, will sit beside it. And so the idea is the container will pass through it, and the proxy can do all sorts of stuff, all these things here above. There is a lot of different service mesh implementations. You don't have to run a service mesh, but in most production use cases, there's no reason not to. And I forgot the E there. Maybe it turned into a hyphen for some reason. But available service meshes for Kubernetes are Istio. So this is currently the most popular service mesh, but some people might debate me here for Kubernetes due to its highly configurable nature. Istio uses Envoy as its proxy. Istio is not a CNA safe project. So when we talk about the sidecar, like there's the control plane and then there's the actual proxy, the sidecar that you install. And so Istio says it uses Envoy for that. Istio is not a CNCF project, but Envoy is. And so Envoy is an open source edge and service proxy. Multiple service meshes use Envoy as its proxy. Envoy is a graduated CNCF project. You have Kuma. This is also a CNCF project, but it's in sandbox mode that uses Envoy as its proxy. I'm not sure if it's competing with Istio, since it's not a CNCF project. Sometimes that's what you see. You see projects that are competing, like they're not, for whatever reason, they're not a CNCF project, and so then a CNCF project spins up to kind of compete with it or fill some kind of edge cases. And it can get kind of confusing because there's sometimes a lot of overlap on certain stuff. You have Linkerd, which is actually what we use or we attempt to use in the fall longs. It's a graduated project known for having strong security, and it just works. Linkerd does not use Envoy. Instead, it uses a simple and ultra lightweight microproxy called Linkerd-to-proxy. And then if we're talking about like a third-party service, like Hashicorp Console, so Console is an open source service mesh by Hashicorp. It's not a CNCF project. Console is offered by Hashicorp as a managed cloud service mesh. So there you go.